Hi, this is Jan from Log Cabin Leather. And again, as I'm celebrating this month my 46 years making handmade leather goods, I thought today I would talk about some of the original tools, some of which I've had now for 46 years. They are the originals that I bought. Others have been replaced since then, but there are certain hand tools that are essential that I cannot live without. So, some of my very first ones, and these are two original ones, are a pair of pliers, a fork punch, and an awl. Now, these two are essential tools. These go everywhere with me. If I go to a show, somebody comes to the house to order something, I have a caddy, and these two tools are in it. I have the awl. In every station of my workshop, there is an awl, used for all sorts of things. Pliers, again, stitching by hand in leather, you have to punch the holes in with a fork punch. Still, it's very hard to pull a needle through, so a lot of times you're using the pliers and things like that. But these pliers, this particular pair, has no teeth in it, so that if you grip a piece of leather, it's not going to mar it and leave teeth marks in it and so forth. So I have different kinds of pliers for different things, but most of them are the smoother edge. I have some jewelry pliers, different things like that. But this is my original pair that, again, is the pair that I take with me. Now, I just mentioned you hammer this in, so you have different weight of hammers. The hammers are not my original tools, because this type of hammer replaced my original ones, which were rawhide, wooden handle again, but rawhide ends on it, which those pieces were replaced. But after you pounded on them a while, they peened out or whatever, and they deformed, basically. So if you're trying to punch stamp something, hammer this down straight so it goes in straight into the leather, and the tool is all misformed here, you don't get a good hit. Well, I mean, a good 20, 30 years ago, they came out with these hammers, which are plastic. I've never replaced these. They don't dent. They stay nice. So there's different weights of them. So this is a heavy one, which I use for my belt making and so forth, which I'm going to talk about tools specifically for belts in a minute. This is a lighter one for more carving. I actually have some that I used to use when I did classes and stuff that are in-between weights. So what I would have the kids use for hammering, stamping designs on, which is what I would do at workshops where they could make a bracelet or whatever, and that for carving pictures. Now, the other thing, again, to use these with the hammer, you also need a poundo board. Now, the ones I'm going to show you today are not my original. I do have the original type actually over in the other part of the room. It's just a rubber mat, and you use that so that when you punch this in through the leather, it's going to come out. It has to come out through the other side, so you're making a hole completely through the piece of leather. Whatever surface it's going to go into, if it's hard, like my granite table here, it's going to ruin the tool. So you use a cutting board so that it's going to mar the cutting board and not hurt the tool. So originally they were rubber, but those deform quickly, and then again it makes it hard because the tool isn't going to land on it. These get hacked up too, but they last a lot longer. And these are easier to replace because they were just a standard kitchen plastic cutting board, and I've cut them into different sizes. And so, again, travel one, workshop one. I have these in several other areas of my workshop for if I need to punch a hole in something. So those are some of the essential tools there. Another essential tool is my rotary punch. This is used to punch holes in things. It's basically a glorified paper punch, or except it's to punch leather, so it's much sturdier. A regular paper punch, if I squeeze hard like this, I bend the handles most often. But this does 6 different sizes, and the pieces are replaceable. These tubes are replaceable, so if you do ruin them, you can, if I try to punch something metal or whatever, it's going to ruin it. Punching it through leather into the piece that's there is what it's meant for, so it doesn't harm it. But you can replace them. They are available in different sizes, and so you have them, in sequential order from smallest to largest or whatever, and then you just turn it to adjust your sizes. So that's another essential tool. So again, I say I have a caddy that whenever I go places has the scissors, the awl, the pliers, a hammer, not so much the fork punch, because I don't use that as much anymore for stitching, and that's something I'm not always doing, it would be in my toolbox, but not my handy caddy, and the pounder board. The other tools, of course, are the design stamps. This is what you'd use to make the impressions and the designs into the leather, which you also hammer in with the hammer I showed you. So those are my basic 10 tools, I guess, 11 tools, or 8 tools. And then the other tools I have now are kind of more specific, what I use anyway for belt making. This really is called a stitching groover, and to make the stitching lines on something. So I use that. Sewing items, I use this too. This is to mark where I'm going to sew. So if I'm sewing along the edge of something, it's going to mark the line. But on belts, a lot of times, I put it just because I think it looks nice. But also, when I'm doing a design, if you notice there's lines, the design is lined up on the edge with that line. That's how I'm measuring how I get my design straight. The other tool I use to get the design straight, and again, any geometric design in particular, I'm going to use this. So belts, I use it, but again, bags and so forth with a geometric design, I would use this as well. It's called wing dividers. I can adjust the width here, but basically, you keep one end on the edge and you run it down. And so for this, I'm scribing a line down the center, which is where all these designs right here are going to line up to make them straight. So that is an essential tool for me, for my belts, because it's how I measure. The other thing I do with it is this design is going to repeat. So once I've stamped it a second time, I'm going to measure from, again, like the center of here to the center of that next one. Then I can just punch that down the belt, and then it makes the stamping design go much quicker because I'm doing it in a pattern. I'm punching the same thing over and over again in a pattern, in a sequence, and it makes it much faster. So that is what I use those for. This is called a bevel, and this is an essential tool for making a belt because what it does is it rounds off the edges. These edges of this are square. It's how it's cut from the hide, which is actually the tool I'll show you in a minute to cut. To round it off, you use this bevel, and it's going to slide it along. I have to have it on a firm surface, or it does cut me. This is the tool I most often cut myself with. And it's going to chisel off this little piece, making the edges of the belt round, not as sharp. So now once that's done on top and bottom, you do it on the back surface of the belt too. Once that's done, you need to burnish it and smooth off the rough fibers on the edges there that are still left. So that's where a burnisher comes in. So this type of burnisher was my original burnisher. And what you do is you rub it along the edges of the leather. Well, the belts I make belts in all widths for people of all sizes. So I cut my belt strips, which actually is cut with this, which is called the belt strip. I'll talk about that in a minute, a little bit more. They're long. They're about 60 inches long because I custom fit them to fit any size waist. And if I'm in a craft show, I'm going to have the piece that can fit pretty much anybody. So that is how I do them. That's a long strip because I'm doing that along this edge. I'm doing it along this edge. That's a lot of rubbing because this is what you do to burnish it down. I have arthritis in my hands. Just this like this. Couple minutes and I can't do it. I have to, it hurts my hand. And when I'm doing batches of belts, I'm doing 30 or 40 belts at a time. I'm doing a lot of burnishing. I can't do it. This is one that is a little bit more modern that replaced that, and you can do different sizes. It's specifically designed to do different things, and so the belt goes along it. Now this one, the belt, this is not wide enough for this strip because it does not touch the inner part of the groove. Same thing, that one is just the right one. This one's a little bit big, so you're not you're making it even, basically. So that's a little easier to hold in your hand, but still too tiring. So I have a piece of electrical equipment, which is going to be in the next video I make, the electrical equipment I have in my workshop that makes life easier for me, that has replaced this. So that will be in my next video. Again, back to this now. This is called the belt stripper. This is how you cut the pieces, all my belts. They're not cut on a machine. They're cut by hand. So these have been replaced many times because I cut hundreds and hundreds of belts. How it works is The strip of belt is put in here. This is adjusted by width, which you use pliers because you want it to be tight enough so you don't. And it's adjusted to the width of the belt you want. It's flat. You make sure these pieces are down, you know, it has to be set up just right. But then to cut the piece of belt, when I pull this through, it would cut that strip the width I want. So if I want to make a wider belt, I make it wider. So it will cut. You have to, when you're cutting it, I have to make sure I'm keeping this edge flush against the edges of the piece of wood here. I have to keep the edges flush against it so that, this is already cut, so this, you know, I have to keep this edge flush there so that it will cut it straight. So again, it's not, you have to get used to using it and pay attention to what you're doing because it's easy to veer off a little bit. So those are actually my 12 essential tools. We have a mallet, we have scissors, we have my design punches, we have the fork punch to punch hand stitching holes, we have the rotary punch, we have the wing dividers, we have the bevel, the pliers, one of my main tools, the stitching groover, and the belt stripper. Those are my main tools that, again, are essential for every product I make now. So that's going to wrap things up for now. Again, if you were interested in learning more about my products or seeing more what I'm making, I have a new product launch that will come out in March. I have a giveaway that's coming up too. So if you want to find out more about these things, either follow me on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. Or, again, join my email on either one of those because you'll get information about the product launches and you'll get early bird access and things like that if you're on my email list. I have also a discount club where you get a discount membership discount each month to use on my website and so forth. So those are all options for you if you're interested in seeing more about my products and learning more about how I make them. Thank you very much. Once again, Jan Hibbard, Log Cabin Leather. Bye.